Now, a new report by the think tank the Institute for Government warns that there is no such thing as a managed no-deal Brexit, and that the hope for a clean break from the EU will not materialise. Well, we can get more on that from one of the report's authors, who is Owen from the Institute for the Government, and he works on their Brexit programme, leading the research into Whitehall's preparation for exiting the European Union. Thanks so much for being with us. Just tell us a little bit more about what your main concerns are.
Well, I think one of the things we really wanted to draw out with this report is the idea that the 31st of October is the finish line, after which the government can start focusing on things like housing and schools and broadband, which is the kind of the message you would be forgiven for getting if you were watching the recent Conservative Party leadership contest. I mean, the point we wanted to ram home is that is probably just the start line. It does not settle. Still unsettled would be what our relationship, our trading relationship with Europe, what our security relationship with Europe would be. All of the domestic adjustments, both for government and business, here and on the continent, would all still need to happen. There would be a huge amount of work. There would be more legislation required. So it really is kind of the end of the beginning rather than the finish line, as some, I think, have presented it.
So is what you're saying is a clean break is impossible, and effectively we could be in this no-deal scenario, what, for years to come?
So legally it would be a clean break in that all of the agreements governing our relationship with the EU would be kind of guillotined overnight, but that would lead to very messy consequences here in trying to actually adapt to the kind of new world as it would be. And yes, it could take, I mean, some areas will be working on this for years in Whitehall. I mean, you only have to look at things like universal credit, automatic pension enrolment, programmes that I think it's fair to say, while complicated, are nowhere near the breadth and scale of a no-deal Brexit. Those kind of programmes have lasted for over a decade. So there will be work on new systems, on what happens at the border, where in some cases the government only has temporary plans and we haven't got any sense of what their medium to long-term plans are. So yeah, this would carry on for months and months and possibly years in areas.
So if what you say is true, where does that leave Boris Johnson's domestic agenda? Because he's been making ambitious promises in the last few days.
Yeah, I think it's very likely that Brexit will crowd out the domestic agenda for any Prime Minister. Just remember Theresa May when she stood on the steps of Downing Street after being elected, talking about the burning injustices she wanted to tackle, and then all of the rest of the Conservative Party manifesto from 2017. It's very hard to point to anything really significant that was done over the last few years because of the all-encompassing nature of Brexit, and that will be particularly true in a no-deal circumstance. Prime Ministers have a limited amount of capacity, a limited amount of time, and a limited amount of political capital, and it's very likely that this Prime Minister and any future Prime Minister in a no-deal Brexit would be spending all of theirs on dealing with Brexit.
From your research though, do you think the UK is more prepared for leaving the EU without an agreement or a deal on October the 31st than when we were supposed to leave in March? Has there been, 6 months of good preparation, so to speak?
So in some areas in government, they have continued the work at pace, trying to build up readiness in key systems or processes. In other places, what they did was just stand down. All of the big operational centres that were stood up for the end of March then got stood down. So thousands of civil servants who were moved to be on no deal were then moved back. And that will all have to happen again fresh over the coming months. But one of the things that we point to in the report is the concern that the UK could end up being less ready in October than it was in March. And a big reason for this is the business community and the concerns that actually they've been kind of marched up the hill twice before with no deal and it didn't happen. Will they want to spend more money, more time, or just see this as part of a game of chicken with the EU that's ultimately aimed at getting a deal and therefore no deal will never happen? The other complication for October is we're in the run-up to Christmas, so any spare warehousing space that existed and was there in March may well now be booked up for Christmas, and I think businesses are already telling government that getting any warehousing space to do stockpiling in the run-in to Christmas in October is proving extremely difficult, if not impossible.
Joe Owen, good to talk to you. Joe Owen from the Institute for Government. Thank you.
Thank you.